Ain't too many city girls been to prom. Steve Harvey, Mr. Put it on. If you can't be in the building, send one of your suits, man. Send me a stylist. It's going down. A dog.
Man, what just went down with Steve Harvey, Charleston White, and Lil Boosie has the internet on fire. And you're going to want to watch this video all the way to the end, because every single moment is wild. This isn't some scripted TV moment. This isn't a rehearsed interview with carefully timed edits. No, this is raw, unfiltered confrontation. Steve Harvey, the man who built a career on comedy, motivation, and family advice, just got exposed live by two voices that don't hold back, Charleston White and Lil Boosie. And trust me, the energy was something else. From the very start, you could feel that this wasn't going to be polite. The tension was thick, the stakes were high, and Steve Harvey wasn't the one holding the power for once. It all started with Steve Harvey making comments, as he usually does, about success, street culture, and the choices people make to rise out of the hood.
I got somebody really attacking me right now. I mean, really going after me, man. I'm just waiting to see what God's gonna do.
He said something along the lines of, too many people glorify the streets and not enough are talking about real success. And honestly, that's classic Steve Harvey. He's the clean-cut, polished voice of guidance, the uncle figure of comedy, the man who tells you to get dressed right, speak properly, and grind to make it out. But this time, he didn't realize who he was speaking to. He didn't realize that the streets had voices that wouldn't take that lightly. Voices like Charleston White and Lil Boosie. Charleston White is no stranger to speaking his mind. He doesn't do Hollywood. He doesn't play polite. When he hears something that he thinks is fake or disrespectful, he goes off. And when Charleston heard Steve Harvey talking like he was better than the streets that raised him, he didn't hold back. He went live and started calling out Steve Harvey, saying that he's out here preaching from a pedestal, forgetting the people who supported him back when he was broke, forgetting where he came from. The moment Charleston started, you could feel the energy shift. This wasn't entertainment, this was real talk, and the internet couldn't get enough. Then Lil Boosie joined the line, and that's when the fire really started. Boosie isn't afraid of controversy. He doesn't hold back.
I know he a real nigga to me. Like I say, bro, I came home, I ain't had nothing to man. Invited me to his concert. Got me front row seat. When I was leaving, gave me $15,000. That's real. Everybody else was screaming my name, all kind of celebrity. They ain't even give me a speak. They ain't even speak to me when I came. That man gave me $15,000. I ain't even know him, bro. That's all I can say. How many celebrities was hollering free Boosie? I saw him, they ain't even acknowledge me. They gave me $15,000. Doing that. He did that from the heart, man. He knew what I had been through, bro. The man knew what I had been through, bro. I'll never forget that. When I see him, I'm definitely gonna bless him, bro. And I keep 15, 20 in my pocket.
He said straight up that Steve Harvey has been acting like he's better than everyone from the streets, like he's the only one who knows how to be a man. Boosie reminded everyone that there are men out here living real lives, coming from struggle, grinding every day, and staying true to themselves. And when he said that, it wasn't just words, it was a challenge. It was a moment where the public could see Steve Harvey face criticism he couldn't talk over, couldn't edit out, couldn't spin.
Them people, I'm exposing gang members, something totally different. I got gang members, homie. This talking about Steve Harvey, just giving you some of the biggest names that we know today. He giving us stuff that you only get to see behind the curtain. I'm telling us the obvious truth that we all know.
And the reaction? Millions of people were watching, commenting, sharing clips, and debating the whole thing. You're going to want to stick around because it only gets more intense from here. The raw energy in that live session was unlike anything Steve Harvey has ever faced before. Charleston White didn't just talk about Steve Harvey's words. He brought receipts, moments from the past, interviews and clips showing times Steve may have contradicted himself about money, loyalty, and fame. Charleston said, "You can't talk about loyalty when you switched on your own people to get where you at." That line hit hard because it touches on something the streets and fans have felt for a long time, that sometimes those who preach the hardest are the ones who leave people behind once they make it. Boosie backed Charleston up completely, adding his own experiences and perspective. He reminded everyone that Steve Harvey's image is polished, but the streets and struggle aren't always pretty. And the moment you pretend you're better than that, people notice. Boosie brought up names too, people Steve Harvey allegedly turned his back on, like Monique and Bernie Mac. And when he said that, the energy exploded. People watching the live were saying, finally, someone told the truth, because it's rare for celebrities to call out someone of Steve Harvey's level. And that's why this video went viral. It's raw truth versus image, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Now here's something you have to watch closely. Charleston White didn't just attack Steve Harvey personally, he attacked the idea of Steve Harvey being untouchable, the man who built a brand and an image of being the perfect role model. He said Steve has been playing the Hollywood game, peddling motivational talks, preaching faith and success, but the streets have been watching, and the streets know the truth. And when Boosie joined in, he confirmed it. Boosie said, "You can't sit on TV and act like you better than the same hood that raised you." That line, simple as it is, hit millions of people because it's about authenticity. And in a world where image often overshadows reality, authenticity wins hearts. And this is where the tension becomes magnetic. Steve Harvey, who usually controls the room, who commands the mic and the audience, suddenly had no control. Charleston White and Lil Boosie set the stage, and the public watched as Steve Harvey's polished image met raw reality. This wasn't just about criticism. This was about accountability. It was about looking closer at someone who built a career on advice and seeing whether that advice lines up with real actions. And for the first time in a long time, people weren't just watching TV. They were witnessing a reckoning live. If you're watching this video, make sure you stick with me because we're going to break down every moment of this confrontation, every word Charleston White said, every statement from Lil Boosie, and why it matters not just for Steve Harvey, but for anyone watching who's thinking about authenticity, legacy, and image. From this moment on, every clip and every comment is part of a bigger conversation about what it really means to rise from struggle and whether success can ever come without compromise. The impact of this confrontation is huge. Social media lit up instantly. Clips of the live went viral on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Fans and followers debated endlessly. Some defended Steve Harvey, pointing out that he earned his success and deserves respect. But others sided with Charleston and Boosie, saying that it's time for public figures to be called out when their actions don't match their words. And as this story continues to unfold, you'll see how the generational clash between image-driven Hollywood and raw street authenticity is playing out in real time. Charleston White didn't just attack Steve Harvey's image, he attacked the idea of Steve Harvey being untouchable, the man who built a brand and an image of being the perfect role model. He said Steve has been playing the Hollywood game, peddling motivational talks, preaching faith and success, but the streets have been watching, and the streets know the truth. And when Boosie joined in, he confirmed it. Boosie said, "You can't sit on TV and act like you better than the same hood that raised you." That line, simple as it is, hit millions of people because it's about authenticity. And in a world where image often overshadows reality, authenticity wins hearts. And this is where the tension becomes magnetic. Steve Harvey, who usually controls the room, who commands the mic and the audience, suddenly had no control. Charleston White and Lil Boosie set the stage, and the public watched as Steve Harvey's polished image met raw reality. This wasn't just about criticism. This was about accountability. It was about looking closer at someone who built a career on advice and seeing whether that advice lines up with real actions. And for the first time in a long time, people weren't just watching TV, they were witnessing a reckoning live. If you're watching this video, make sure you stick with me because we're going to break down every moment of this confrontation, every word Charleston White said, every statement from Lil Boosie, and why it matters not just for Steve Harvey, but for anyone watching who's thinking about authenticity, legacy, and image. From this moment on, every clip and every comment is part of a bigger conversation about what it really means to rise from struggle and whether success can ever come without compromise. The impact of this confrontation is huge. Social media lit up instantly. Clips of the live went viral on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Fans and followers debated endlessly. Some defended Steve Harvey, pointing out that he earned his success and deserves respect. But others sided with Charleston and Boosie, saying that it's time for public figures to be called out when their actions don't match their words. And as this story continues to unfold, you'll see how the generational clash between image-driven Hollywood and raw street authenticity is playing out in real time. Charleston White didn't just speak for himself. He spoke for people who feel overlooked, ignored, or silenced by polished messaging. He reminded everyone that sometimes the people who rise to the top forget the very foundation that got them there. And Boosie amplified that message with his own life experiences, proving that success doesn't have to mean abandoning authenticity. Together, they created a storm, one that forces Steve Harvey and viewers alike to consider what it truly means to stay real while rising to the top. Steve Harvey's silence after the live confrontation speaks volumes too. He hasn't responded publicly to the full scope of what was said, and while some might think silence is a smart strategy, in situations like this, silence can also fuel speculation. The streets and the fans are watching, and they're interpreting every pause, every non-response. For Steve Harvey, the stakes are higher than ever, because this isn't just about his image, it's about credibility, authenticity, and legacy. The conversation also highlights something bigger than just Steve Harvey, Charleston White, or Lil Boosie. It's a reflection on public perception, celebrity influence, and how the internet amplifies voices that used to be unheard. Where Steve Harvey used to control narratives through TV, Boosie and Charleston now control narratives in the digital age, live, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. And this shift changes everything, because it reminds viewers that no matter how polished someone is, authenticity will always have a louder voice. If you're still watching, stay with me because it's about to get even more intense. Charleston White didn't just attack Steve Harvey's image, he attacked the system that allows people to rise without accountability. And when Boosie added context about loyalty, past struggles, and respect, it became clear this is more than celebrity beef. This is a discussion about legacy, morality, and staying true to one's roots while navigating fame. Fans online immediately reacted. Some pointed out that Steve Harvey has always had the platform to inspire millions, and they respect him for that. But others said that the confrontation proves that even legends can be challenged, and it's healthy for people to question the actions of public figures. And the reason this is so compelling is simple. Millions of people are seeing a version of Steve Harvey that isn't polished, that isn't filtered, and that hasn't been rehearsed.
Now, let's talk about why this confrontation resonated so much with people everywhere. Steve Harvey has always been seen as the man who made it out of the struggle, the guy who tells people how to live right, how to dress right, how to pray, grind, and make money. But for a lot of people, there's a difference between preaching and practicing, and that's exactly what Charleston White and Lil Boosie highlighted. They weren't just attacking Steve for the sake of it. They were showing the world that there's a gap between what's being preached on camera and what's being done behind the scenes. This is a lesson not just for celebrities, but for anyone watching. Sometimes what you see isn't the full story. And if you stick around until the end of this video, you'll see why millions of people online are still talking about this moment days later. Charleston White started off by breaking down the problem with Steve Harvey's image. He said, Steve Harvey out here talking like he ain't never been around no real ones. He think because he put on a suit, he better than the people who made him famous. And that line hit hard because it's a reality a lot of people have felt for years. Steve Harvey grew up in the streets, worked hard, and became a star. But Charleston reminded the world that ignoring your roots or looking down on the people who supported you early on comes with consequences. And that's when the live session really exploded. Comments were flying in from all directions. People were tagging friends, sharing clips, and debating whether Charleston White was being too harsh or just telling the truth. Then Lil Boosie came in with his perspective, and you could feel the energy rise even more. Boosie said, "You can't sit on TV and act like you better than the same hood that raised you. We men too, bro. We just come from different cloth." That line is simple, but it hits deep. It's about respect, authenticity, and remembering where you came from. Boosie reminded everyone that you can't fake life experience, and when someone pretends to be above the very people who shape them, it doesn't go unnoticed. Fans instantly related to that message. Some even said, finally, someone is holding Steve accountable, because it's rare to see a star of his level confronted so publicly in real time without any filters. What made this even crazier was how Charleston and Boosie weren't just speaking. They were providing examples, receipts, and stories from their own lives. Charleston started pointing out moments where Steve Harvey contradicted himself in interviews or TV appearances, moments where he appeared to judge people he came from. He brought up situations about loyalty, money, and fame, showing the world that image isn't everything. And when Boosie added stories about celebrities Steve supposedly turned his back on, including names like Monique and Bernie Mac, it took the confrontation to a whole new level. People online were shocked. They were debating whether Steve had really abandoned friends or if this was just a heated moment blown out of proportion. And that's why you've got to watch this video all the way to the end, because the story keeps building and the public reaction alone is part of the drama. Now, let's take a closer look at Steve Harvey's role in this. Steve has built a reputation over decades as a mentor, a motivational speaker, a life coach, and a media mogul. His image is polished, professional, and respected. But the moment Steve in Charleston confronted him, that image was challenged. He couldn't control the narrative with TV edits, scripted answers, or production teams. He was confronted with voices representing the streets, voices representing authenticity, and people who refuse to sugarcoat the truth. And while Steve hasn't responded publicly in detail yet, the silence is deafening. For viewers, this is an unfiltered glimpse into what happens when celebrity status meets real talk. The streets don't lie. And in this case, the streets are speaking loud and clear. One thing that makes this story even more intense is the clash of generations and perspectives. Steve Harvey represents the polished, image-driven approach. He's about looking successful, acting professional, and motivating people to climb out of their struggles. Charleston White and Lil Boosie represent a different era, the era where authenticity and real-life experience carry weight, where the streets have voices, and where social media allows anyone to speak truth without being censored. That clash of worlds, polished TV versus raw reality, is why this moment has captivated millions. Fans are split. Some defend Steve Harvey's legacy, while others are applauding Charleston and Boosie for exposing what they see as hypocrisy. And as the debate rages on, the story continues to grow. Here's something else to consider. Charleston White didn't just call out Steve Harvey as a person. He called out a system. He called out a culture that celebrates polished appearances over real stories. And Boosie supported that by saying that even though he and Steve both came from struggle, there's a difference between staying true to your roots and performing for fame. That's why this confrontation isn't just entertainment, it's a lesson in authenticity. It's a reminder that no matter how successful you get, people remember who you really are, not just who you appear to be on stage or on camera. And if you keep watching this video, I'll show you exactly how the public reacted in real time and why this will be remembered as one of the biggest confrontations in celebrity culture. Social media has been wild since the live confrontation. Clips went viral on X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. People created memes, reaction videos, and commentary clips. Some defended Steve Harvey, saying he earned his success and deserves respect. Others agreed with Charleston and Boosie, saying it's time for someone to call out a legend when they've lost touch with the streets that supported them. And the comment sections? Absolute chaos. People were debating, arguing, laughing, and questioning everything they thought they knew about Steve Harvey. And the reason this is so captivating is because it's real. Nothing was staged, nothing was edited, everything happened live in front of millions of people. Charleston White's approach was strategic too. He didn't just attack Steve personally. He reminded everyone that Steve's image is carefully constructed, polished for TV and motivational audiences. But Boosie added context about loyalty, respect, and history, making it clear that this wasn't just a personal attack, it was a reflection on the choices Steve made throughout his career. And that's why people are still talking about this. They're debating who is right, who is wrong, and whether Steve Harvey's era of untouchable status is really over. And as the confrontation progressed, Charleston dropped a line that left viewers stunned. If Steve Harvey's done, he been done. He just don't know it yet. And you could hear Lil Boosie laughing, not because it was funny, but because it was true. That moment was a wake-up call for everyone watching. It wasn't just about Steve Harvey. It was about holding anyone in power accountable. It was a reminder that public perception can shift instantly, especially when raw, unfiltered voices get their chance to speak. And this is why you should stay until the end of this video, because the moments that follow are even more explosive. The live confrontation also highlighted the generational divide in entertainment. Steve Harvey represents old school, polished, refined, and carefully curated. Charleston White and Lil Boosie represent new school, raw, authentic, and unafraid to call out what they see as fake. And when these worlds collide, it's not just a clash of personalities, it's a clash of philosophies. One side values image and presentation, the other values honesty and staying true to your roots. This clash is fans talking and debating endlessly. And as we continue through this video, you'll see how every word, gesture, and reaction contributed to a viral moment that won't be forgotten anytime soon. After that explosive moment, the conversation didn't stop. Fans immediately started comparing Steve Harvey's polished persona to the raw energy of Charleston White and Lil Boosie. People were dissecting every clip, replaying Charleston's lines, analyzing Boosie's gestures, and debating how much of Steve's success came from hard work versus carefully curated image. Some viewers said, Steve's teaching life lessons, but he forgot the life he came from, while others defended him, saying he earned his place. Let the man talk. The truth is, this confrontation struck a nerve because it questioned authenticity in a world where image often speaks louder than reality. And for viewers watching until the end, you'll see how the public's reaction alone became a story bigger than the confrontation itself. Now, one thing that really made this moment unforgettable was how Charleston White didn't hold back. He talked about loyalty, honesty, and being true to yourself. He reminded everyone that Steve Harvey's message is powerful, but sometimes the messenger's actions don't align with the lessons. Charleston said, "You can't talk about loyalty when you switched on your own people to get where you at." That line caused a huge ripple effect online. People started revisiting old interviews, clips, and social media posts looking for proof of contradictions. It was almost like the public became detectives overnight, and the internet itself became a courtroom where Steve Harvey's authenticity was being judged. Then Lil Boosie jumped in, adding fuel to the fire. Boosie said, "Steve act like he the only one who know how to be a man. We man too, bro. We just come from different cloth." That simple statement broke down barriers between the polished TV world and the streets. It reminded people that no matter how much fame or money you have, you can't erase your roots. And if you try, people notice. The moment went viral instantly, and fans couldn't stop talking about it. The clash between street authenticity and TV perfection had reached a boiling point, and everyone online was now part of the debate. What's fascinating is how the confrontation also brought up names and stories from Steve Harvey's past. Charleston mentioned celebrities that Steve had allegedly turned his back on, like Monique and Bernie Mac. Those mentions weren't random. They were examples of a broader point. They highlighted a pattern of behavior, suggesting that Steve Harvey may have prioritized fame and corporate approval over loyalty and genuine relationships. Boosie reinforced this idea by saying, if you're struggling, he ain't calling you, but if you're famous, he want to take a picture with you. That line alone set social media on fire because many people had observed similar behavior in celebrities over the years, and now it was being publicly called out. The way Charleston White and Lil Boosie delivered their message was also part of why it was so powerful. It wasn't just words. They brought energy, emotion, and unapologetic confidence. Their tone was firm but passionate, and viewers could feel the intensity of the moment. This wasn't a scripted TV debate. This was real life. They spoke directly to Steve Harvey, to the audience, and to anyone watching online, and that authenticity is what made millions of people tune in and stay glued to their screens. And that's exactly why you need to watch this video all the way through, because every reaction, every line, and every gesture tells a story that can't be missed. Another reason this confrontation resonated so deeply is that it exposed the generational and cultural divide. Steve Harvey represents an older generation of entertainers, one that values polish, professionalism, and the appearance of success. Charleston White and Lil Boosie represent a newer generation that values authenticity, raw honesty, and real-life experience. When these two worlds collide, it's not just a clash of personalities, it's a clash of philosophies. The audience was split, some siding with Steve's message of discipline and refinement, while others sided with Charleston and Boosie, who demanded truth and transparency. And as the debate unfolded, viewers could see how much influence social media has on shaping public opinion, turning a single confrontation into a global conversation. The online reaction was instant and overwhelming. Clips from the confrontation flooded X, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, with fans dissecting every word. Some people were outraged, defending Steve Harvey and his decades-long career, while others praised Charleston White and Boosie for speaking truth to power. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary threads exploded, creating a massive digital storm. And the fascinating part is that the confrontation wasn't over after the live session. It kept building, with people analyzing, debating, and sharing for days. That's why staying until the end of this video is important. You'll see how the story evolved and why this is considered one of the most unforgettable celebrity confrontations in recent memory. Even Steve Harvey's silence after the confrontation added fuel to the fire. Normally, a celebrity of his status would have a PR team ready to respond, issue statements, or try to spin the narrative. But Steve stayed quiet, and that silence spoke volumes. Fans and commentators interpreted it in different ways. Some said he was taking time to reflect, while others argued that he was caught off guard and had no defense for the raw truth Charleston and Boosie delivered. That uncertainty only made the story more compelling. People were now not just watching a confrontation, they were witnessing the potential unraveling of a carefully cultivated public persona. Another aspect that made this moment so viral is how it questioned the gap between image and reality. Steve Harvey has spent decades presenting himself as the perfect man of faith, success, and discipline, but Charleston and Boosie highlighted that no matter how polished your public image is, people notice inconsistencies in your actions. That's a lesson that goes beyond celebrities. It applies to anyone who wants to build trust and credibility. Watching this confrontation reminded viewers that authenticity matters more than appearance, and disconnects between the two are never unnoticed. And if you're watching until the end, you'll see exactly why millions of people are now questioning what they thought they knew about Steve Harvey. Charleston White also made a point about loyalty, which resonated deeply with viewers. He said, "You can't talk about loyalty when you switched on your own people to get where you at." Those words reminded everyone that your past and your people define a big part of your story, and ignoring them comes with consequences. Lil Boosie reinforced this by pointing out examples of people Steve allegedly didn't support when it mattered most. Together, their messages struck a chord with fans who have long felt that success sometimes comes at the cost of integrity and relationships. And that's why this story isn't just about Steve Harvey. It's about values, respect, and accountability.